How come that's not working? Hi, everybody. Welcome to On Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hance, and we're very happy to be joined tonight by Molly Yatso-Butz.
Perfect.
I got it. All right. You're the executive director of the day-by-day warming shelter here in Oshkosh. And boy, have we got a lot to talk about as far as the weather, the shelter, your plans for the future shelter, and all of that. But we are taping this on I thought the wind was supposed to end like around noon today, and it's still windy even tonight. So I'm sure that adds to, your population of guests who want to be guests. So, and we're going to get into all of that. But now you guys just started your 11th season in October?
Yes.
October 15th?
15th.
Okay. So your season runs from October 15th to when?
April 15th.
Okay. Well, April is good as long as we don't get one of those late winter storms like we had, 2 years ago? Or was it 3 years? I guess it was 3 years ago now.
Yes, I think it'll be 3 years.
Where we got 18 or 19 inches of snow in mid to late April. It was crazy. But it really, to me anyway, almost seems hard to believe that Day by Day has been there. I mean, this is your 11th season now. It's hard to believe that it's been there that long.
And it's 6-month temporary use permit. I mean, that is just, that's kind of a joke. Not a joke, but it is in all seriousness. We're in a 6-month temporary use permit 11 years later. So it's time. It's time. We're so thankful for what, the St. Peter's site and Most Blessed Sacrament and things have offered to our shelter, because without them, where would people have gone for the last 11 years?
Right.
But, as I've stated, I think probably a million times this week between all the news sources in town, it's just time. We've outgrown the shelter. We're seeing more people now than ever. And it's hard to do our jobs in a space that no longer accommodates the mission.
Right. And we're going to talk about all of that. But, even when it first opened, even in its first season, you couldn't accommodate everybody. And I know that you were, that was probably 3 or maybe even 4 people before you.
Yeah.
But it was challenging even back then. I mean, to have space only for 25 people, that's nuts. I mean, it's craziness. And, you've already, now we're taping this on December 16th. It's not even officially winter yet.
Right.
For another week.
Yes.
5 days, maybe, whatever it is. But it's not officially winter yet. And you guys have already had to turn away a record number of people, right?
Correct. So we turned away more people from October 15th to November 30th than we had in the entire previous last season.
So in 6 weeks' time, you had already turned away more than
double.
All of last season.
I think double. I think it was 100, and when I just gave the newspaper the numbers, I think we've turned away 152 times, something like that, and we did 73 or 72 all of last season.
That's insane.
I mean, we've had to actually, what's happened is we've actually had to really kind of pivot and adjust the way that we even work every night, because here's just a story, right?
Sure.
Because we have the time to tell the stories. People are so desperate for beds and so scared that they're not going to get a bed. We do a lottery system because there's really no other fair way of doing it. So when people line up, they then choose a number. And of course, 1 through 25 gets the bed. So we've had people stick number 11 in their pocket, stick number 20 in their pocket. So then they think it's, guaranteed, if I can get 11 and keep it in my pocket and pull it out the next night, I'm guaranteed a bed. Well, then all of a sudden there's 2 number 11s, and then somebody who thought they were going to get a bed doesn't get a bed. And then that creates anxiety and worry and stress. And it's just been,
arguments too, I would think.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. So, now we're having to color coordinate, the chips based on the day of the week, so that we know, well, if they have a red number 11, that was from Monday, and so the yellow number 11 would be tonight. So we've had to make a lot of adjustments due to the fact that we are so full every night.
Wow.
Some of the other things that we've had to do is we've asked our meal teams to provide that additional 5 to 10 meals. So, and then we asked them to prepare that ahead of time. So we've gotten to-go containers from various organizations in town. Yeah. And then those meal teams prep the to-go containers, and we have them sitting so that when someone does get turned away, we offer them that to-go meal right away. But we've added one additional administrative staff person per night, obviously because we're all salaried and it doesn't cost us anymore. But we've added that person every night, and that person does nothing but manage the turnaways. So on an average night, we're probably dealing with 5 to 10 people who thought that they were going to get their basic needs met, right? They thought they were going to get a shower. They thought they were going to get a good night's sleep. They thought they were going to get a warm meal, maybe some one-on-one time with our staff, to help them through some things or whatever it may be. And then they draw number 27. And their whole, right? Their whole almost,
they're crestfallen.
Yes, absolutely. So now what we've done is, when that started happening over and over and over, and then we started seeing the good guys that are still around give up their chip every single night because they will not let a woman sleep on the street, which is so, it's beautiful to watch, right? And it's so kind. But as you're standing there watching them give up their token every night, you think, so are they just never going to get right? So are their basic needs just never going to be met because they're just too darn kind and they won't let a woman sleep on the street? So then we started adjusting all of the other things that happen. So now we offer daytime services for those who were turned away at night. So they're given a card and with an appointment on to come in the next day and receive all of the services that they didn't receive the night before. So again, we've
a shower,
yes,
a meal.
Yep. They get some time to just kind of, chill a little bit if they needed that, get
or
out of
warm
the cold, warm up, meet with staff. Anything that they didn't get the night before. So we've really had to adjust. Everybody's had to kind of change their hours. Now we've got, people rotating all through the shifts so that, we're there during the day and they're at night. And so it has been a lot to manage. But again, our mission is to serve the most vulnerable. And so when you're looking at this population that is far larger, again, than what we're able to serve, we have to figure out how to accommodate everyone.
So the hours that someone, say they get one of the 25 chips, what time do they have to be there then in order to even hope to get one of the chips?
So no one is allowed on property until about 5 minutes to 6, and then they can begin the lineup, and then the drawing of the numbers does not happen until 6 p.m. So and then I want to also share that we have bed saves for those who are employed. So if you are employed, so I think the other night when I was there, maybe two nights ago, we had 4 people who had bed saves. So that means that you're working a second shift job and you can't get there at 6 o'clock to draw a number. With verification from that employer, you do get a bed save. But then we have to start the number at 5. So then only 5 through 25 get a bed. So then that gets people even more anxious, right? And reading the log last night, one of our guests had been turned away the previous night. And then last night when he came to shelter, he became very anxious because it was so cold out and because, he said he got a horrible night's sleep with just one sleeping bag on the ground. And he did become very anxious. So, I think we're starting to see some of these other trickle down effects of the fact that we've been full every single night.
So the drawing starts at 6. they can start lining up at 5:55, but it's not just the first 25 in line then. So you have, I guess I'm trying to understand how the drawing system works.
So the first thing we do is we count how many people are in line. So if there's 40 people in line, then we have 40 chips in the thing.
I see. Okay. All right.
So the staff counts everybody in line, and then they come back in and put that many chips into the bucket.
But how sad.
Yeah.
The whole situation is heartbreaking, especially this time of year with the holidays coming. And by the time this airs, Christmas, well, this is going to run for 2 weeks. So for sure at one point Christmas will be over and we'll be into New Year's. But yeah, I mean, it's the weather, like this week, for example, on Tuesday, I mean, it was a beautiful day. Tuesday. It was just gorgeous. I mean, what was it, like in the 60s? And even the nighttime was, I don't want to say balmy, but I guess for Wisconsin in December, it was kind of nice.
Right.
And then, boom, the very next day, we're into frigid temperatures and winds that are kicking up to 60-mile-an-hour gusts at times. And the temperature change was something like 30 degrees difference.
Yes.
From one day to the next.
Yes.
And I can't even imagine it, Molly, at all. And I don't know what you folks do to, I guess, to alleviate your stress, because this has got to be a stressful job for you guys.
Yes, and it does become very emotional.
Of course.
And you do become very attached. It is a very hard job to leave at home or leave at work. Yeah, I mean,
How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you?
I don't know that I do. I mean, I think that if you would ask my family, I don't. I don't think any of our staff does. I mean, we are all very attached. It could be why, my position in particular has had a lot of turnover, right? As you alluded to, I mean, I think I'm the 5th or 6th ED, because I think it was 18 months, because you do get exhausted. We've changed. We made a lot of changes in the last 16 months since I've been there that I think are helping. And then I do believe that that the anticipation or the excitement of a new shelter that would actually offer us an opportunity to really do our jobs well, and not have some of the stress, like, having 2 halfway decent washers and dryers is a huge stress. It's a huge stress for our staff. And now, of course, that's, not something that my job has to deal with, right? But when you have staff who is really overwhelmed by laundry at 2 in the morning and at 7 in the morning and at 10 in the morning and at 2 in the afternoon, and you have 2 halfway working washers and dryers, that becomes stressful for everybody, right? And you have guests banging on the door, I mean, really knocking on the doors all day long saying, is my laundry done yet? I have no dry clothes. I have no clean clothes. And we're like, sorry, the wash machines are halfway working today.
Yeah. So help me out here, because I think I understand the laundry that you're doing, but I'm not sure that most of our viewers or listeners, if they're listening to this on the radio, I'm not sure that they understand it. So you're not only washing the sleeping bags that people are using, it's their own personal laundry.
Correct.
Because of which they have very little, I'm sure.
Yes. Okay. So we do wash. Yeah, that's a great question. We do about 65 loads of laundry a day. So when a guest becomes, so if I could go back, everybody who stays at day by day is done, completes an intake, which is required by the state that we're, a licensed homeless shelter, and we submit all of that information and things like that. So we do that intake form, and once they've completed that intake, really we become their home for as long as they need us to. So they can store belongings at our site. Each guest gets 2 bins. So it's a Rubbermaid tote. So imagine putting everything you own into a Rubbermaid tote, and that's what we do. We keep that for them. Each bin is numbered, so we always know whose bins are whose. And then the other bin stores their bedding.
Okay.
And we wash bedding twice a week. So of course we're not washing that bedding every night.
Right.
But when they come in each night, they are given a laundry bag, and then they can put their laundry in for that day and then attach their name to it, and then their name tag kind of follows them through the system.
Yeah.
And then we do fold their laundry and put it back in their bed for them, or we'll have it ready for the next day. You know, some of the other things that people don't think about is, can you imagine, we have 40% of people who stay with us right now are employed. So we have to make sure that they have the appropriate laundry to wear to work the next day. You know, how do you go to an interview when you don't have a nice shirt to wear? So we try to launder, we try to, you know, get things ironed out for them. And again, you know, storing those belongings. Can you imagine going to the interview with everything you own on your back?
No, I can't. So as far as the bins, who's to say that those same people are going to be there the next night?
Yeah.
So how many bins must you have?
We
then?
have a lot of bins.
I'm sure.
And,
I'm sure.
you know, that's one of the other, so when we talk about a future facility, a laundry room and a bin room are two huge things,
Sure,
right? Because
yeah.
they're so much a part of what we do. So once a person, we haven't seen them for 3 nights in a row because of the lack of storage that we have and bin space, we do have to bag their items and we store them for them until they come back. Or the guests will call and say, hey, I'm you know, staying with whatever, and I'll be back. And they'll give us the time. Please do not empty my bins. So they kind of, you know, get into that routine. But we do store their belongings for them until they come back. But that bin usage is a never-ending cycle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So from 6 at night until what time in the morning do they have to be
So
gone?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
You know, because a lot of our people do work, we start showers pretty early, 5:30. Between 5:30 and 6 o'clock showers. So our guests get 20-minute shower increments, and we have a men's shower and then a women's shower. We typically see about 80% men every night and 20% women. So the men do overflow to the women's shower when needed. But they get a 20-minute shower slot, and then it starts at 6:30 at night. And then it also begins the next morning. So staff begins waking people up probably around 5 a.m. to start getting them ready for work and out the door. Most of our guests get to work by either bike, foot, or bus. So I think it's important too for people to understand that. We had a gentleman who's now in his own place, and he's doing great, but he worked second shift. So he was done working at midnight, and he was about 5 miles from the shelter, and so then they have to walk. So he had a bed save, but the buses don't run at that time. Yeah,
the city bus stops at 6.
Correct.
Every night.
So he got to work via bus, but then, but they, a lot of times they'll choose second shift for a couple different reasons. This gentleman in particular chose second shift because it was a bed save every night. So even though he didn't get to shelter until 2 a.m., he was guaranteed a bed until he woke up the next morning. And of course he made more money on second shift. So it was, an incentive. Second shift was an incentive for him. Yeah. But to walk at midnight, 5 miles.
In this kind of weather.
Correct.
It's not like it's, 5 miles under any circumstances, I think, is a hike, no pun intended. But when you're dealing with these kinds of temperatures,
yes.
No, I can't even imagine it. Have you guys ever tried to work something out either with maybe the cab company or with Uber? I'm sure you've thought of all these things, right?
Yeah, and part of I actually we started just to kind of get us through a couple of days, I started paying for a cab to just pick him up because my heart goes out to someone like that because you want them to be successful. And I think, well, how do you be successful? How are you successful when you start at a -5, right?
Yeah.
Like we need people to at least be at ground zero, if not greater, to get them to a better place. But when you're always starting right? You're always starting below ground zero.
It's hard to get up to
correct.
even to an even playing field,
correct.
if you will.
Yes.
And then to advance yourself
Yes.
further than that.
Yes. And then the guys at the where he worked started picking up and understanding his story and then dropping him off at the shelter, which was very nice.
It is very nice, but for
But that's
people
not
who,
guaranteed.
right, and for people who don't have nice coworkers like that or
Yeah.
have that option, I mean, if you've approached the cab company, what has their response been? I mean, it seems to me, Molly, that when we have, these, I don't know what it's called, but like on special holidays like New Year's and things like that, the bars through the Tavern League kick in for paying rides for people to get home so that they're not driving drunk. And it seems to me that in a giving community like Oshkosh, and I'm born and raised here, so I'm proud of this community, but it seems to me like someone in this community ought to be able to step up and say to the cab company, hey, let's find a way to make this a win-win. I mean, it would be a tax write-off for the cab company to donate some rides. I mean, have you guys approached them?
Did. I did. I approached some things with, there are some federal programs with, with transit and things like that, but when the guest has an income, it automatically doesn't qualify them for, I know, and unfortunately this guest was making too much money to qualify for some of these things, and which is unfortunate.
Yeah, let's take government programs out of the mix, because I know that's always a slippery slope. Even if you make $1 too much, then you're falling through the cracks or not getting help at all. But it just seems to me like, why can't the cab company, and I don't know, I think don't we have 2 cab companies in this city? I see different kinds of vehicles around town, and I don't know if one's Oshkosh Cab Company and the other one's something different, or maybe they just have different kinds of vehicles with different names on them, but it's all the same company. But it just seems to me like, why can't they just be a good neighbor and donate some rides, or donate part of a ride for people or something?
Well, and I could have pursued that a little harder. I tried to go with what was available, with maybe some assistance and stuff. But I did have people in my Rotary Club, which I'm a member of the Downtown Rotary Club. I did actually have people in the Rotary Club say that they would each take a night a week, which was amazing.
That's
so
good.
Our Rotary Club served dinner one night and at the shelter, and they started hearing the story and asking, well, like, what time, when we put away the meal, for the night, well, what time does so-and-so get? I explained it, and they said, oh my gosh, we would each take a night. If it meant, every Wednesday night you had to set your alarm for 11:30 and go pick up. But luckily, he's in a better place now, and he has his own place.
But
and
how many other folks do you have like that who are?
Yep, we have quite
in
a
need
few.
of rides, really.
Yeah. So a lot of, like I said, I think the other night we had 4 bed saves. Now, I would have to, see at what time they were, but at some point they have to walk back, right? Even if it was 8 p.m., right? They're still walking back to the shelter.
It's still dark. It may be freezing cold. It could be snowing. It could be icy. I mean, we've already, and again, it's not even winter yet, and we've already had high winds. We've had a little bit of an ice storm. There was one night, was it last week or just the other night? All my nights and days seem to be running together, but we had thunderstorms, and then that turned into ice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been weird, and to think about having to walk anywhere in inclement weather like that, it's a heartbreaker.
It is, which is part of the reason why we probably get the calls the next day or at night, that they tend to stay pretty close to the shelter. I think it is their safe spot for sure. So, when they are turned away, they don't go too far. They stay. We find them pretty close. I don't.
What do folks do during the day? If they don't have jobs, I mean, we all hear about people living under bridges and things like that. Do we have that kind of an issue here in Oshkosh, where people are living under the bridge?
Oh yes. So our guests actually lived under the bridges all summer. So let me go back a little bit. In July of 2020, when I started, we were in a very interesting situation, right? We were in the midst of COVID. No one really understood what it was or what was happening. You know, we had actually opened 2 months before that, for an emergency shelter, because people didn't know. That we just knew this, pandemic was coming and whatever. So they opened an emergency shelter and put, I think it was 50 or 60 people in the gym, which now we look back and we think, oh my gosh, that was probably the worst thing that we could have done in that situation, is have people, but who knows?
Still.
But it got people off the streets. And remember that everybody closed. So when I got there in July, we shifted a lot of things around. We moved staff around and we altered positions and we opened. So we opened. We had 2 donors donate air conditioning units, and Dan Shea from Shea Electric pays for all of those air conditioning units to be pulled in and out, and we can't thank him enough for all he does. And we put those air conditioner units in, and we opened pretty much a daytime cooling center. So, and then what we found is that so many people used it. We were having more people coming in during the day than we were allowed to see at night.
Wow.
And so we then just never closed. So we really have never closed since that day. So now we run a daytime resource center from April 16th of next year, when the overnight shelter closes, we will then open a daytime shelter. And really, like we talked about, the weather plays a huge role in homelessness. It's, we think winter is very dangerous, but summer is another very dangerous time to be homeless. So,
Well, sure, because you've got the extreme heat.
yes.
And plus, I mean, I'm just guessing here, but it seems to me like more people who are up to no good are out and about in warm evenings.
Right.
And overnights. And I'm not saying your guests are up to no good. I'm saying people who are up to no good and may attack them or, I mean,
Right.
does that happen?
Yeah, and that's where, the bridges came in. There's been a lot of stories about the bridges. The Oshkosh Police Department just put out a really lovely story about how they encountered our guests who slept under the bridges, and now the Oshkosh Police Department used their lights money to help these 2 gentlemen get into their apartment, which is awesome. I saw them yesterday. They're doing great. And so, the bridges have a lot of buzz right now, but that is where, where they tended to sleep this summer. And, I don't know if people have heard that story, but, the police and city council and city manager and such were getting calls from people who were, I think, a little paranoid maybe about seeing homeless people under the bridges. They weren't doing anything. They weren't causing problems. They were just...
it just bothered people. It got to their comfort
scary.
level a little bit.
And so the police had called me saying, we know, this, we're not... We may just move them along a little bit. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just that we have to, take the call. Yes, absolutely. But my comment was, well, I don't know where you're going to send them, because they have nowhere else to sleep until we can open a 365 shelter. So when they got there that day, or that morning, evening, or whatever it was, when we weren't open yet for our daytime, there was a gentleman there who said, well, I can't leave this spot right now because so-and-so and so-and-so are working right now, and I'm watching their stuff, so that when I go to work, they'll watch my stuff. And the police officers were like, oh my gosh, they rotate working shifts to watch each other's things. And then that's what prompted this whole amazing goodwill story. I mean, it was just so great. And they had these conversations, and then they called and said, do you know that they're all working? And I said, yes. Well, then we wrote a story about a gentleman named Carl, and Carl's story is out there. So I have permission to use his name, and the story, you can email me if you would like to read the story. But Carl talked about how hard it was. He's been working ever since I've known him. He became homeless last Christmas. And got a job right away. And so I asked him to tell his story about what it was like to sleep under the bridge and work every day. And his story is very interesting, but I think it does allow people to take a step back and think, okay, what would I do if you had to get ready to go to work every day? He talked about brushing his teeth.
Yeah.
And finding, a change of clothes, and
Absolutely.
then having to get there and back, and maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep the night before. And then he also talked about how difficult this summer was for weather. So we had these torrential downpours, and then just kind of a lot of storms and a lot of hot nights, and so he talked about that in his story as well. But that's hard for them to manage too. And then you still have to go to work the next day, and be productive. And not try to lose your job. But, he did say to me that there were a lot of days that he, would end up having to call into work because he needed a shower, and and with our daytime hours, we were always open when he was at work.
Sure, yeah. I know this past summer, I had occasion for a publication that I write for, and I had to go and get some pictures of the Leach Amphitheater. Mm-hmm. And as I was down there getting these shots, there was a gentleman just doing nothing wrong. He was just sitting on the steps. He had his little radio there, and he had a guitar, and he was just kind of playing his guitar and just kind of hanging out. No one bothered him. And like I said, he wasn't doing anything wrong, but it was heartbreaking to see, because I know that if he had a place to go, he would have been there.
Yes.
Instead of sitting on the steps, with presumably everything that he owns.
Right.
And so it was tough for me to see. Mm-hmm. And I can't fathom being in this kind of situation. So, if you have to turn all these people away, when you turn them away, do you turn them away with anything at all? And then where do they go? Just under the bridge, mostly? Mm-hmm.
Now that it's winter, they do try to find a little bit, I think they try to find places closer to the building, to buildings to break the wind a little bit, or, things like that. But we do give them a warm meal, so those meals are ready for them. So we are able to give them that, and then a sleeping bag.
What about things like mittens, a hat, socks? I know many years ago, one of the things that they needed was chapstick.
Yeah.
And not chapstick, the brand necessarily.
Yeah.
But so I just went and I bought a whole bunch of chapstick in bulk.
Great idea. Yes.
And dropped it off, because I was noticing tonight, just before we started taping, that, wow, my lips, my hands, everything was just so dry.
Yes.
And so I'm
sure. So in our lobby now, we have it set up that all of those items are accessible all the time. So if they were turned away and they would say to us, look, I just need to come in and grab an extra hat, or, they can go. But again, remember how I talked about how that extra staff person was added, because, then if they were expecting to get in and they needed a clean pair of, jeans or underwear or whatever, right? And now you can't get it because your bin is downstairs and in the shelter, and you didn't get the right number. So that staff person does a lot of that. So what do you need tonight? And they'll say exactly those things. So we'll let them pick out that kind of stuff right up in the lobby. We have it accessible at all times now, just readily available. And then that staff person will go down and get their personal items that they're looking for the night to get through. Or maybe they'll give us their bag and say, I don't want this out on this, on the streets with me tonight. Will you just store it, and I'll come back and pick it up in the morning? So sometimes we'll do that as well. The turnaways are a very
sad
situation.
Yeah. I made a note here, 65 loads of laundry a day. I mean, just the wear and tear on a washer and dryer doing that kind of, I mean, that's a lot of wear and tear on machines.
Yeah, so we've got every guest, and then, we have to keep up with just the, towels, washcloths. So every guest used a towel and for their shower the night before. So we've got all those loads. Then Tuesdays and Fridays we do bedding. So by the time you get through that, we can't get through all that in one night, right? So it's constantly kind of moved to the next day.
How do you ever get caught up, though?
Well, I will tell you, there are some times when people will email and go, the laundry is all caught up. It's a pretty big deal.
I can imagine.
But now sleeping bags is a whole different thing with the amount of turnaways that we've had this season. If the guest does bring back the sleeping bag, we do give them a $5 gift card. So they do come back, and they have to be in good shape. But again, then that creates probably 3 more loads of laundry every day. So,
and how many washing machines and dryers do you have?
2 halfway decent ones.
2 of each?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So one of the things that, like I said, our future shelter will have is obviously we're hoping for about 6 washers and 6 dryers.
Okay.
So that'll be very exciting. It's when we talk about I think it's also important to share that one of the things that I'm most proud of day by day for, and I think it's the thing that sets us apart from a lot of other maybe homeless shelters or things like that, is that we do accept everyone. So no one is ever turned away. So it doesn't matter what your history is. It doesn't matter if you've been incarcerated. It doesn't matter if you're an addict. It doesn't matter what your life story. We accept everyone. But I think,
provided they get the right numbers.
Yes. But once you enter our doors, I think the thing that all of our staff would say we're the most proud of is that we treat you like your family. So you become a part of our family, and we get to know each person on a very personal level. And, that's been one of the things that I've enjoyed most about the job. And it certainly isn't part of the job as the ED to get to know these people on a personal basis. But I felt like if I didn't, how would I ever tell the day-by-day story?
Well, exactly.
And my job is to tell the story to the community. So, I really enjoy getting to know them, and we all eat dinner together, and it's a really, really nice atmosphere, and I think people really enjoy being at day by day. And with the holidays coming up and things like that, it does get sad. It does. It gives you an entirely different outlook on your life and the holidays that you have, and what they mean to you now, right? But one of the gentlemen, I was allowed to use this quote, and I said, "What does Christmas mean to you at day by day? What does it mean to you to have Christmas at day by day?" And he said, "Day by day Christmases make up for all the horrible Christmases in my past."
Wow.
So, I think we do a great job. I think we provide people just compassion and understanding in a really, really, really difficult time in their life. And so, and I think when you come there and people volunteer, they see that. They see that we're really there to support them. Yeah.
I want to take a short break here in just a moment, and then we'll talk about the proposed, the dream building.
Sure.
But do you see, and I realize that you've only been at Day by Day for 16 months, but is homelessness a generational thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a cycle of poverty, right? I mean, there are people that I've sat down with one-on-one and asked, what does this look like for you? Can you imagine, doing this and having, things things that you and I would think are very common. And to them, it's not so common because, maybe they've been on the streets their whole life, or their, parents have been homeless. So there definitely is a cycle of poverty. There definitely is just bad luck.
Yeah.
There definitely is, I made a bad choice in maybe investing in something or buying something, and it fell through on me, and now look at where I am.
Well, and I'm sure that, COVID has played a huge role in some of the homelessness because, there for a while there was a moratorium on, that landlords could not put you out for not being able to pay your rent.
Right.
And once that moratorium expired, well, then what are you supposed to do if you're still not back to work, or you've had to accept another job that maybe isn't paying as much? I mean, on the one hand, I'm sure that people are looking at this and saying, there's so many jobs out there. There's job, help wanted signs all over the place. Yes, but you have to be able to have the ability to have clothing and so on and so forth to get to that job, and then a means to get home from that job. There are some people who just maybe are unemployable for certain reasons.
Right.
And, the other part of it is, sure, there's a lot of jobs out there, but they may not be at the same level of what you had before. And so you still, and some people might say, well, it's better than nothing. Well, yes, but it still doesn't mean that it's going to keep you from becoming homeless.
Correct.
And I think that's the difficulty with this.
Right. And just, what happened with the gentleman that the police helped was really, you have to have your first month's rent and a security deposit. So for those two gentlemen, it was $1,700. I mean, that takes a lot.
A piece.
No,
or
it was
together.
But
Okay.
still, it takes
That's a lot.
It takes a long time to save that type of money. So, that was a really, really, really big jump start for those two guys.
Absolutely.
And they're both working 50 to 55 hours a week right now. And again, we could not be more proud of them. That whole story is like the Cinderella story of our community coming together, and two guys who had just kind of fallen on their luck. And again, because they were so employable, and because they don't have any history, and they're sober. They were like I said, the Cinderella story.
Yeah, for sure.
It was amazing that we could all come together and help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just take a real short break, and then when we come back, we'll show the building that the artist rendering of the building and so forth. So we'll be right back.
Problems.
I'm okay.
The ones nobody talks about at cocktail parties.
Yeah, they're fine.
We go looking for them.
Also, I don't
No matter the obstacles, no matter the odds, we surround a community's most critical problems, and we fight. United Way fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. Will you?
I'm a good
Nearly
talker
half
and I'm
of
a good
children with
storyteller. I
autism
mean, I really could
wander
just
away
hear
from
probably
safe
all night
places
and tell
such as their
stories,
home
but-
or school. If you ever see a child walking alone, remember the 3 S's. Stop to help, seek assistance from police, stay until they arrive. If a child with autism is missing, immediately search places that pose the most danger, such as nearby water and busy streets. To learn more, visit missingkids.com/aware.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for help with food, healthcare, and other resources.
211, how can I help you?
Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected. Get help.
Roll over. Chance high five. All right.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. And your mother and fur. I am totally a hot person. Right, guys? Thanks for being honest. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org.
Molly Yatso-Butz from she's the executive director of the Day by Day Warming Shelter, and we've been talking in the first segment about all the challenges and, the dilemmas that you guys are facing. And it has always been just like a 6-month shelter, and but the homeless situation, as it is anywhere, is pretty extreme, and I think since COVID probably much more. So you guys are looking to have a new building, one that is open year-round, 365. And I know we've got some graphics here, some artist renderings. If we could maybe take a look at the first one, and I think that this is when they bring it up. Okay, so this is an overhead aerial shot of what this is going to be. So I see Broad Street there. So
Yes.
it's proposed to be on the corner of Broad and Seepy. Now, where is that in relation? And let's just leave that one up for a moment. Where is that in relationship to where you guys are right now in St. Pete's?
So I don't even know the mileage, maybe a half mile away.
Okay, so it's real close.
Yeah, 3/4 of a mile maybe. It's pretty close. I think somebody said 5 blocks one time when we were looking at it.
Okay.
So
all right.
So yeah, this is what the building will look like from an air,
And how
looking
many
inside.
square feet is this proposed?
It's 12,900, and it will accommodate 50 people per night with the ability to go up to 65 in an emergency. So if we have that polar vortex again, or that summer, monsoon that we had during EAA week or whatever it was
Right.
this year.
All right. Well, let's. We've got a couple
Yeah,
shots
so
from
I
the
can-
ground. So here we go. Now I can see Court Tower. Yep.
Behind it. So where the silhouette of the person walking in would be where our guests would arrive each evening. But of course, that's all covered now, which is nice. But our queuing area will be much larger, that you could see in the previous slide. That queuing area where we collect their information and ID check them in, and then they go through a search. And then they sign up for their chore and their showers. That area is much larger in the new building, so we're not going to have 50 people standing outside at night. We'll be able to bring them in and get them through those checkpoints a little better.
So with Court Tower there in the background, this is going to be a brand new building, right?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything in that location right now?
There is not.
It's just empty?
Yes.
Okay.
And it has been empty for 20 years.
Oh my! Wow, that's a long time. Well, it's
Yes.
time for something to be put there.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the other slide, or the other. Here we go. So Court Tower is way off on
Yes.
the right there.
Yep, and you can see their garages off to the right as well. So this is kind of exciting. This door that the silhouette is actually our volunteer and staff entrance.
Okay.
And then the little doors down towards Court Tower. So those are the donation drop-off doors.
Okay.
So when a person comes to donate items to the shelter, which is another, obviously huge sticking point for us right now, because we have a donation storage unit on the other side of town, way past the outlet mall, that we have to coordinate our pickup times with our current storage because
that's inconvenient.
it's very inconvenient. And it takes like 3 days for laundry detergent to
So how
to be used, so we have to coordinate things appropriately. But there's like a little garage door there, similar to what you would have at a Goodwill. And so therefore, when people bring in items, we'll be able to manage those donations right there.
Okay. And I'm sure when you get to this point, you will have it staffed certain hours, much like Goodwill is. I mean, what if someone, I mean, I know I'm thinking way ahead, but is there any kind of going to be I don't even know if you still have Goodwill boxes around town that you can drop things in. I think that there maybe are. If someone wants to drop something off when you're closed, will there be
I'm
a place
sure
where
we'll
they can drop?
probably have something like that. Otherwise, one of the really exciting things about the new building as well is it's going to be secured. We're going to have a lot of safety measures, things that we just don't have right now. But that somebody will be able to buzz a doorbell in that back area, and then the receptionist will know to go back to that area and let that person in. But we'll have to think about bins to be stored outside for after hour.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there'll be cameras and all that kind of stuff. That's almost a given in our society today. I tell people, I expect almost at any time that I'm on someone's camera somewhere.
Yes.
So that's a good thing, I think.
Absolutely.
So where are you at? And I know that as we tape this on December 16th, this is coming up. Is it in the next week to City Council?
It did. So this past
it did
Tuesday
already.
night, the
Okay.
14th, the specific implementation plan or the site improvement was passed by Plan Commission last week, and then the council did vote in favor of it this past week. So next on the council agenda is the land acquisition. So what's being proposed is that the city would purchase the land through CBDG funds, which we have already applied for. So those funds they've already been designated for this specific purpose, that they would purchase the land on our behalf, and then we would buy it back from them for $1, because the Oshkosh Housing Authority does currently own that site.
Oh, they do? Okay. Well, I'm surprised they haven't in all these years put something up there.
Well, if you talk to the previous executive director, she said that it's been saved for day by day for a very long time.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really good.
Yes.
So CDBG, it rolls off some
Community
people's
block grant dollars.
Community Development Block Grant.
grants. Yeah,
it
there we
rolls. The initials roll off some people's
Yes,
tongues
yes,
better
yeah.
than it does off mine. I can say the whole word,
Right.
all the words, and so for people who don't know that, those are federal funds that are put out for specific types of things, whether it's to get rid of some blight or whatever the case may be. So this is good. So do you have any idea how much the city will have to pay for this
The lot
property?
is currently listed at $150,000 if used for this purpose.
Okay. All right. And then, so they'll use those federal funds to pay that, and then they'll sell it to Day by Day for $1.
Correct.
That's a good deal. I wish I could
Yes.
buy a house for $1.
I know. So that will be on the
So that's
agenda
good.
for January 11th.
Okay. And then how much money do you all need to raise to get this underway? Have you started kind of a small kind of capital campaign, or?
Yeah, we have started a little bit. I've been out actually talking to some larger donors, and then Day by Day has been putting money aside for this purpose for the last 11 years. So there is some money there. We do have a building fund, things like that. So there definitely is some money. We are, going after some other opportunities right now that exist through, ARPA funds and things like that. But we will have to do our own campaign, yes. And the project is slated right now to cost approximately $3.5 million. That was that was done prior to everything kind of going up right now with construction costs, but we're still hoping to keep it at that. Again, with then starting the capital campaign and seeing what people are going to donate as far as, just things that go into the shelter.
Sure. And I'm sure that as this kicks off, this capital campaign, you're going to have a lot of people stepping up, I'm sure.
I hope
and so when do you think that the capital campaign will officially kick off?
I would believe that the campaign would kick off in about February of 2022. So this coming February.
Okay, so 2 months away.
Yes, I know.
It sounds very close, but I'll tell you, for people who are out in the cold, it can't come soon enough. And then how long before you would, from the time you break ground until the time you finish, is there a timeline for that?
We would love for our guests to be in the new shelter by this time next year. So
really? Wow, that's going to be fast. How much do you need to raise from a capital campaign before you can break ground?
We're probably looking at about $750,000 more right now.
Okay.
In the next few months.
Okay. All right. Wow. That is an ambitious schedule, but it's so needed.
Right.
And so then you will be open 24 hours a day.
Nope, not 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And we'll keep our same schedule. Really right now, the shelter is it is practically staffed 24/7.
Right.
But during the daytime is when we do the one-on-one counseling appointments.
Yeah, so I want to talk just a little bit about that before we are out of time, and we've got, I think, about 2.5 minutes left. So you've got one program, it's called Gateways to Goals.
Yes.
And so that's working with people during the day?
Yes, yeah.
What is that?
So our outreach specialist and our program director are busy all day long just managing people's one-on-one appointments in their gateways to goals. So we have these 9 goals, and when people enter our shelter and choose that they do want to work with our staff to get out of their situations, we put them in a section of these goals. So it could be housing, financial stability, employment, education, sobriety, whatever it is. So then our daytime resource center is really open for those goal setting sessions. So where they can utilize computers with staff to help them fill out their housing application, their job application, update their resume. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. They're busy all day long. So
someone is always doing something during the day.
Yes.
Monday through Friday, or on weekends too?
Nope, not on the weekends.
Just Monday through Friday. And so that's going on Monday through Friday during the day.
Yes.
And then the housing, for sleeping overnight and that kind of thing, that will probably start at 6 o'clock again.
Yes, it will start at 6 and then so we're going to stay with that same schedule. We're just going to be 365 instead. So. Okay,
excellent. Well, it's hard to imagine that the hour is already up, because I've still got so many questions, but I would encourage people to go to the Day by Day's Warming Shelter, which is warmingshelter.com, and I commend you guys for what you're doing. I don't even know how you begin to do it, because there's just so many people who need help.
There is. And
thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank this community for supporting us so well. And with the holidays coming up, it really does show how gracious and generous our community is, because they do think about the people who don't have anything, which is amazing.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. We're going to have you guys back as the building gets going and so forth. That's our very last show for the year. So I will say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you, as well as, to my crew. And thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of my guests, not just Molly, but for the entire year. And we will see you in 2022. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.